What if the richest part of your retirement is not your bank account?
Most people obsess over their savings, and I get that. But they ignore the hidden wealth that exists that actually makes life worth living.
In this video, we will uncover 7 types of wealth that you already have and one thing that might be missing.
I remember when I first retired, when I first was thinking about retirement, when I was thinking 3 years leading up to retirement, you and I had figured out the financial piece, and we were fortunate for that. But that's all we knew. We knew, you tell this great story of when you first started your career at Chubb, where the first thing you had to do was sign up for a savings plan, a 401k or a pension or something like that. And we were taught that you just have to save money, have to save money, have to save money. And then all of a sudden you land here, and then you have this big switch like, okay, I don't have to save money anymore, or I can't save money anymore because I'm not earning any more money. And I remember I just felt like, what am I going to do now? And, we tell the story about us getting in trouble and drinking too much and eating unhealthy and relationships soured a bit. We both gained weight and we had to pivot and we had to work really hard at creating what we now call the discovery years and our retirement drift reset, where we take the 7 pillars and really build a new life for ourselves. Until we did that, we were really in trouble.
Yeah, really, to sum it up, we found a way to redefine wealth in retirement, right? So it's not just your assets and what's in your bank account and whether you've accumulated and now you're deaccumulating assets. It's not about that. What does wealth look like to you for the next 30 years?
Yeah, and one of the reasons people get this wrong is because of what we've all been taught, like I just said, that equating wealth only with money. We have so many people on the channel leave a comment that I don't have enough money to retire. Okay, I get that, but there's other components of your life that can bring you wealth, that can bring you satisfaction, that can bring you energy. If you stay stuck on that, it's going to be a problem.
And the other thing is measuring success in this phase of life doesn't look like it looked when you were in your career and you measured, your salary, your title, your growth, your bonuses, whatever it was. You really need to define for yourself new metrics or you're going to feel lost.
And that's what we're going to talk about today. So having this new perspective of redefining wealth as energy for what really matters. That's an important shift. That's not money. That's, energy for what matters. So does what I'm doing right now give me energy or does it drain me? Does health vitality, is that fuel for me to live a better life? I would answer yes, it is. And that's another way to start thinking about this phase of life.
Well, the other thing I would say, and I think, we're transitioning still into doing this, your calendar really becomes your new balance sheet. Where you spend your time now in retirement really reflects your priorities. Where in the past you could say, and I know we both said, and maybe you all have said, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to meal prep. I don't have time to visit my mom. You no longer have that excuse. So this calendar as your balance sheet is really something that reflects your priorities.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So let's talk about the first thing that we want to bring to your attention, and that we call it time affluence. Just like you said, we all start with the same amount of time each week. So if you want to compare yourself to others or your friends or your family, you all have 40 hours of 5 8-hour days during the week to do things. Question is, what are you going to do with that time? If you're going to spend 38 hours of that watching TV, which is, you've heard this before, you've been following us, that's the average number of hours that people spend each week watching TV over the age of 65. What are you going to do with those 40 hours? That's your money now. That's your bank account. How do you fill those 40 hours?
And with that time affluence, you really have to think to yourself, what does freedom look like? Freedom with no structure can look like isolation. And then you say to yourself, and we hear this from you guys a lot, well, I don't want structure. Honestly, structure equals freedom and also aligns you with your priorities. So I would challenge you on the time freedom equation to really put in some structure. The next thing is physical vitality. Without health, your freedom is lost. And that is the full statement. Without health, your freedom is lost. Movement, nutrition, sleep, they are wealth generators to you right now. That is extremely important. Take a minute to digest that. Energy impacts your motivation, energy impacts your mindset, and energy impacts your relationships. Those are your new assets that you need to be building.
And I think this whole physical vitality thing, for us, this is at the base of our retirement plan. This is so important to us, so core to our livelihood, so core to our relationship and our mindset. We both go to the gym 5 days a week, early in the morning, almost first thing when we get up, because it's so important to us. We just did a video. Last week we filmed it. I don't know when it's coming out, but if you can't stand on one leg...
It came out.
Oh, did?
Yeah.
If you can't stand, maybe it came out today. If you can't stand on one leg for a minute, your chance of dying in the next 10 years goes up by 50%, was it?
I think, I can't remember.
That's incredible. So this is really one of the core pieces of wealth in your life. It's not just longevity. It's not just lifespan. It's health span. This is where you can 10x your value. If you start working out and exercising, you will live better, you'll be happier, you'll live longer, you'll be able to pick up grandkids, go up and down the stairs, get out of a chair. This is really a home run. So I know we beat that up a little bit, but it's really, really important.
You know, the next key asset that you have is emotional resilience. And you might think to yourself, why do I need that now as I'm aging? But really, the ability to navigate and change during this time of life defines your post-retirement success. You're going to experience loss. You're going to experience aging. You're going to experience uncertainty. That emotional resilience is a muscle that you need to build and an asset that will help you as you're building this newfound wealth in retirement.
Love that. The fourth asset that you have beyond money for wealth is meaningful relationships. Humans are social animals. We thrive when we have healthy relationships. We withdraw and shrink and decline and get lonely when we don't. And the number one killer, really, of men and women is chronic loneliness. And that's feeling lonely for 2 weeks or more, because that leads to heart disease, dementia. Gosh, they talk about kidney disease. What's the other big one?
Diabetes.
Diabetes. Mm-hmm. If you're feeling lonely, everything in your body breaks down. You've lost your physical wellness, you've lost your mental wellness, and now you're faced with being all alone. No one to talk to, no one to grow with, no one to share ideas with. This is a biggie. And if you can make that a piece of wealth by having a good circle of friends and family, that's another home run for you.
You know, that kind of leads into the next one, which is intimate partnership. You know, wealth includes intimacy. Wealth includes presence and relationship shared growth. You know, retirement changes your dynamic if you have a spouse or a partner in your life. You have to intentionally wake up in the morning and you're going to be with this person, you know, for the next 12 or 15 hours that you're awake. It's no longer that you split and one goes one way, one goes the other way. We reconnect at dinner, go to sleep, and get up and do it all over again. You know, you really need to see your partner and that relationship as a wealth driver in this new equation.
Another component of wealth is your purpose and contribution. Your reason for waking up matters more than getting paid for your job. So trying to find a way to give, to learn, to contribute, to mentor, to train somebody else in your life, some group of people, a nonprofit, a medical cause, really starts to give you purpose and contribution. Without that, again, you feel a little bit aimless. Now, some people can get through life and, you know, do the golf 3 days a week, go out to dinner 3 nights a week, kind of fill their day with some things. But when you're able to do this, you've now taken your life to an entirely new level of satisfaction and purpose and aligning yourself with your values. I'm sure your values weren't or aren't, I just want to play golf 5 days a week, unless you're trying to get on the senior tour. Then that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
yeah.
I'm trying to get on the senior tour.
I think you might make it.
No, I'm not. Terrible. But that really leads to this idea of growth and discovery. You know, learning, trying, failing, evolving. That's just gold as you move into retirement. A curious mind will always stay young. And I think if you have that as another asset, you will continue to build your new wealth portfolio in retirement.
You know, this is 2025 and chat, GBT, artificial intelligence is everywhere. Just in a newspaper this morning, they're talking about all these companies cutting thousands of employees because they're replacing their job with AI. So instead of being worried about that, I would suggest from a growth and discovery point of view, you dive into AI and understand it and try it. I use chat GBT all the time. I hardly use Google anymore. Gives me better information, more information, but I would just suggest, because it's happening. Your kids are using it, your grandkids are using it, all companies are using it, they're replacing people with it. I would embrace it and learn about it. Now, there's also the doomsday scenario and the naysayers. That's going to exist with everything. But this growth and discovery, is it something that's helpful that you might like?
Yeah, I give you a lot of credit on the chat and the AI and all of that. I am not a conspiracy theorist, but I am a little more reluctant. I still believe in the art and science of the human brain and the growth and development of the human brain. You know, not just saying, I'm going to throw it into chat and have chat give me an answer. So, you know, I think there's a lot to learn there. I think you should dive in, but I also encourage people to, you know, just use your human brain.
Well, I think we do. We take what we get and we humanize it. The same thing with Google. I mean, you can ask a question into Google and you get 35 links. You put the same question in chat and you get an answer.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
a culmination of those 35. We don't agree on this,
don't.
but we do agree on growth and discovery as one of your 7 pillars of wealth.
Right. We've made a lot of mistakes in our retirement, and we've seen a lot of other retirees do the same. We want to help you avoid them.
That's why we've created a free download, 5 steps to save you 20 years of a miserable retirement. Download it below. Here's a question from Eileen, who's 67.
Okay.
Hi, Markham and Jody. I'm Eileen, 67. I used to think I was poor because I didn't have a huge nest egg, but I have deep friendships, energy, and time. Am I actually wealthier than I think? Well,
100% yes.
Yeah, we just spent
Right.
the whole time on this. It's a great question.
It is a great question.
And making that mindset shift, you know, my dad spent his entire retirement looking at the balance of his Merrill Lynch account every day and watch the stock market all day long on TV, and nothing really happened.
Right.
You know, he didn't look at the other 7 pillars of wealth. For him, it was his money. How much do I have? How much do I have today? The market is crashing. What do I do? And it's okay to watch your money, and it's okay to have money.
Sure.
And it's hard when you don't have enough money. But when you make this transition, Eileen, like you have, that you have deep friendships, energy, and time, you are wealthier than you think.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, another question. It's to me. Hey, Jody, I'm Tom. Hey, Tom. I spent most of the day reacting to news, errands, and emails. How do I take back control of my calendar so I feel like I'm living, not drifting? You know, that is an intentional turn of events, you know, to take control of your calendar. I had an amazing assistant when I worked at Chubb, and my calendar was full and she told me where to go, what to do. And it wasn't that I was reacting to it, but I was definitely responding to what she scheduled for me. In retirement, you are in charge of your calendar. You know, yeah, sure, you collaborate with your spouse or partner, or maybe you have grandchildren obligations on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or whatever your thing is. But at some point, you need to take back the power of the empty day and put the structure in it. The other thing I would say to Tom is it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
You don't have to react with yes in everything. If it's a no for you, it should be a no, because yes, begrudgingly, you're better off with a no.
I like that. All right. Hey, Jody, I'm Lynn. I spend about 3 hours a day watching TV, and it shocks me how fast time disappears. Are there benchmarks for how wealthy retirees are and how they spend their time? You know, I think that if you were to take TV and put a value on it, if you've got 8 hours during the day And if you were to line that up with any of the other 7 pillars, physical wellness, mental, relationships, spouse-partner relationship, intimacy, purpose and contribution, and growth and discovery, those 7, and put a value on them and compare it to TV, there is no comparison. I mean, unless you're watching TV to learn and discover, watching a documentary, watching YouTube videos on how to do something to enhance a hobby, I don't think there's a comparison.
Well, I don't think there's a comparison either. And I think the broad brush scope of retirement is this. It's individualized for everybody. You do what works for you. You find purpose that works into your day. You find structure that works for you. You find nonprofits to join that touch your heart. You find your own spark. So while we can tell you what works for us and ask you to try things, to put values on things, to not waste time, I think it's still very individual.
It is, but I'll tell you this. If you compare an hour of TV a day, 7 days a week, and what that does for your life and your future and your health, okay? And compare that to walking for an hour a day, 7 days a week for the rest of your life. What do you think the difference is?
Yeah, well, being sedentary and watching TV is a sedentary activity. You know, I wouldn't even just put it in the watching TV bucket. I would put it in how often are you just sitting versus how often are you moving your body, especially at this stage.
But she's talking about TV.
Right.
So an hour of TV has little or no value compared to an hour of walking. If you walk 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week, it is said that you'll get 5 more years out of your life. I can't say the same thing for TV.
Right, I agree. If you enjoyed this video,
you're going to like this one too. We'll get back and Jody will say we'll never get those hours back. So we're getting really good at practicing what we preach, because in our retirement course, we talk about the 3 types of friendships. Friends you invest in, friends that you maintain. You see them twice a year, that's enough. And then friends that you really need to let go.